Bleach meets Naruto, the mad scientist who revolutionized shinobi warfare. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 61. Capture Yi Song. Capture Luo Sha. Strange, the leader came alone. Hyuga Ninja relayed the information he saw with a surprised look on his face. So confident? Other Konoha shinobi were all stunned when they heard this. Scorch style, steam kill. At this moment, a cry came from the front. Dozens of fireballs were suspended in the air, and the light they emitted illuminated the area of 100 meters. And it emitted waves of terrifying high temperature. Scorch style, Yakura. Many Konoha shinobi stared and recognized the identity of the person. No wonder she dared to come up alone. I heard that her scorch style can steam people dry in an instant. But the premise is that she has to hit the target. At this point, the Konoha shinobi present all smiled with ease. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Dozens of scorch-style fireballs whizzed down. The speed is extremely fast, almost twice the speed of the ordinary fire style. This time, I should be able to kill more than 30 people, at least. Yitsong whispered to herself in the distance, with a proud confidence flashing in her eyes. But the next moment, her whole face was stunned. Bang! 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 There was a sound of air explosion in front. One by one, the Konoha shinobi actually hid dozens of meters away at an extremely fast speed, stepping on air or something with their feet. Boom! The scorch-style fireball fell, but it only exploded in the open space. No one was hit at all. How is it possible? Yitsong looked stunned and asked in surprise, what's the matter with that speed of movement? Special body flicker technique? Why do so many Konoha shinobi have mastered it? She fell into confusion. If one or two people dodge, Yitsong will not be surprised. There are always some ninjas who are particularly fast. But the Konoha shinobi in front of them all dodged, and all of them mastered super speed, which was a big problem. Are you kidding? Scorch Style's attacks all missed. 283? Why are they so fast? The Sand shinobi in the back were also surprised. At this time, Konoha's counterattack also came. Bang! 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 The air was filled with explosions. A middle-aged man from the Hyuga clan rushed over like lightning. A distance of hundreds of meters was crossed in an instant. In an instant, the middle-aged Hyuga man rushed in front of Yitsong, and with a large amount of chakra in his right hand, he suddenly hit 8 trigrams empty palm. Looking for death. Yitsong's face changed drastically, and he cast a spell with his life at stake, creating a scorching fireball to bombard the Hyuga ninja. Bang! The middle-aged Hyuga man gave up the attack, stepped on the exploding air, and instantly moved away. The fireball hit the air. What is this body flicker technique? Yitsong narrowed her eyes, and was in awe. It was very fast. Her scorch style might not be able to hit anyone. 8 trigrams empty palm. The middle-aged Hyuga man was not big, he just raised his right hand and continued to hit. Scorch style over steam kill. Yitsong's expression tightened, and he cast the spell again. Bang! The middle-aged Hyuga man stepped on the air again and dodged. It seemed that Yitsong interrupted the attack of the middle-aged Hyuga man. But after several times, Yitsong was sweating and began to pant. She suddenly realized that something was wrong. You are consuming my chakra. Not too stupid. A smile appeared on the face of the middle-aged Hyuga man, but it's too late. Bang! 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 The air exploded continuously. The figure of the middle-aged Hyuga man seemed to turn into a flash of lightning, circling Yitsong 360 degrees. Step. Step in the air. Yakura was stunned. This Hyuga ninja actually went against common sense and walked in the air. How is this possible? Back. The Sand shinobi also opened their mouths wide, staring at this scene in amazement. That Konoha shinobi, moving in the air. What a joke, where in the world is there a teleportation trap? What should we do now? No, Lord Yakura can't hit him at all. We're going to lose. The Sand shinobi's faces changed drastically. Front. Yakura became anxious and created a large number of fireballs, shooting them in all directions. But, without exception, all these fireballs were dodged. Bang! While dodging, the Hyuga middle-aged man found a gap, dodged to the back of Yakura, and finally hit with his right hand that had been gathering chakra. 8 trigrams empty palm. Boom! The materialized chakra burst out from the right hand of the Hyuga middle-aged man, turned into a huge rock, and hit Yitsong fiercely. Yitsong was hit by it and flew backwards. One Luffy was dozens of meters away. Ugh. Yitsong rolled on the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood, and her face turned pale instantly. She looked at the Hyuga middle-aged man in horror and asked, "Who are you? Is there someone as powerful as you in the Hyuga clan?" "Hehe, I'm just an ordinary special jonin." The Hyuga middle-aged man chuckled. "Impossible." Yitsong didn't believe it, stared at him, and said, "How can you be just a special jonin with your strength? She, Yitsong, is an elite jonin. This Hyuga ninja can easily defeat him, and is definitely one of Konoha's high-end combat forces. But why didn't the village collect any intelligence?" Yitsong fell into confusion. "Master Yitsong. We are here to save you. Hold on. Kill these Hyuga ninjas." The sand shinobi in the back saw Yitsong defeated and rushed forward. However, they didn't run many steps before their eyes rolled back and they fainted on the ground. What a joke. Yitsong's pupils shrank. She didn't see clearly how her ninja fainted. What kind of technique is this? When did Konoha become so terrible? This camp is just one of the 4 major camps in Konoha. Yitsong, you sand shinobi lost. The middle-aged Hyuga man said lightly. Sand shinobi will not admit defeat. Yitsong raised her head stubbornly, made seals with both hands, and wanted to fight to the death. She was a proud person and would not allow herself to be captured. Yitsong made a seal and suddenly froze. As if petrified, the whole person was motionless. But it was not that she did not want to move, but a shadow, spreading from a distance, controlled her shadow. Shadow imitation technique. Success. A Nara ninja appeared not far away. Around him, many Konoha shinobi also came. They surrounded Yitsong, including the fainted sand shinobi. Yitsong's pupils shrank sharply, and the fear in her heart surged wildly. At this moment, she felt that the blood in her body was cold. Catch him, this is a scorch-style blood limit, and it is worth capturing. A ninja said, who seemed to be the leader. As soon as the voice fell, 2 female ninjas walked towards Yitsong with a smile. In Yitsong's horrified look, they fed him poison that suppressed physical strength and chakra, blocked his tongue, and tied his hands and feet. Woo woo woo. No matter how Yitsong struggled, it was useless, and he could only be carried to the prison in the camp. In the original place, several Uchiha ninjas stepped forward and opened their scarlet Sharingan. Almost done, we can fight back now. Everyone, will go first. Uchiha as the vanguard. Everyone had no objection, this was a tactic discussed in advance. Bang. Several Uchiha stepped out with a bang, and with the help of the explosion of natural energy, they rushed out at a very fast speed. Soon, they broke into the sand shinobi camp. Who is it? Stop. Stop right there. Countless sand shinobi were on guard. Puff puff puff. But in response to them, the lightning-fast knife light flashed and interlaced in the air. In less than a second, a huge wound was cut on the necks of more than 20 sand shinobi, and blood flowed out. Weak. Too weak. Is this the level of you sand shinobi? 5 Uchiha ninjas, with 3 Tomo Sharingan open, appeared in the camp. They looked around, and the cold pupil power emanated. All sand shinobi were afraid of being caught in an illusion, and they looked away, not daring to look at the Uchiha people. Asshole. Rosa was furious and formed seals with his hands, magnet-style, gold sand burial. He pushed his hands forward suddenly. A large amount of gold sand gushed out, like a raging wave, violently rushing towards the 5 Uchiha ninjas. It's Lord Raza's magnet style. Great, these Uchiha are dead. Yeah, no one can bear the weight of the gold sand. That's right, even the tailed beasts will fall into Lord Raza's magnet style. The morale of the surrounding sand shinobi was revived when they saw this scene. Rosa also smiled. He nodded and was about to say something encouraging to stabilize people's hearts. Poof. Suddenly, a big bag bulged in the gold sand in front. What? Rosa's face changed. Bang. The bulge suddenly exploded. From it, 5 Uchiha ninjas with blue circuits flashing on their skin walked out. They were covered with gold sand. However, every grain of sand that hit them was blocked by a layer of azure light, and could not hurt the 5 Uchiha ninjas at all. Impossible, my magnet-style, gold sand. What kind of technique is this? Luo Sha looked at the 5 Uchiha ninjas in disbelief. Nothing is impossible. This technique on us is a perfect defense. Your magnet style can't hurt us. The 5 Uchiha ninjas sneered and pointed their knives forward. Luo Sha's heart sank when he saw this. He tried his best to perform ninjutsu. Magnet style, gold sand cube. Magnet style, gold sand spear. Magnet style, gold sand realm. But as the 5 Uchiha said, his magnet style could not hurt the opponent at all. All the attacks were blocked by the azure light. Choke. A Uchiha was covered with a lot of blue light, and his speed and strength suddenly doubled. He rushed to Luo Sha at a speed that could not be captured by the naked eye. Puff. The ninja sword was aimed at the stomach and stabbed fiercely. So fast. Luo Sha's pupils shrank sharply. Before he could react, he felt a sharp pain in his stomach and lost all his strength. Bang. Then, a heavy blow landed on the back of his head. Luo Sha's eyes rolled back and he fell into a coma. At the same time, Uchiha's ninja rushed into the remaining sand shinobi, relying on the defense of the stasis technique, and rushed recklessly. Like Shura, he ignored all attacks. No. Let me go. Don't kill me. I don't want to fight anymore, I surrender. The sand shinobi had never seen this devil-like guy before. They were quickly frightened, threw away their weapons, and knelt on the ground to surrender. Commander Raza had lost, so what were they, as soldiers, still holding on? Half an hour later, the killing subsided. The soil in the camp had become wet, soaked with the blood of the ninjas. 70 or 80 people ran away, but it doesn't matter. A Nara ninja counted the heads and said, it's just right for them to go back and report the news, so as to deter Tsuchigage's restless mind. Put the crime on our Konoha? Be careful, we really think we are the murderer and beat you Tsuchikage. The words of the Nara ninja attracted many people to nod in agreement. As he said, the Nara ninja looked at the unconscious Raza and said, the value of magnet style is also very high. We harvested 2 bloodline limit owners in one night, which is a great harvest for us. Send them back to the village overnight, to prevent the sand shinobi from getting upset and trying to snatch them away. After saying that, several teams of Konoha shinobi took the unconscious Raza and Hagura and headed towards Konoha village. The next day, Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru had just returned to the village and had breakfast. They received a message. The frontline camp troops of Konoha captured Tsuchigage's magnet-style ninja Raza and scorch-style ninja Hagura. It seems that the 2 techniques you developed are more effective than expected. Orochimaru said with interest. Raza and Hagura were captured in one go. Tsuchikage only has these 2 signature ninjas. Old Lady Chiyo is going crazy. Whatever works. Nara said indifferently. He has no interest in war. Even with the blood suit technique and the flying sickle technique, they still can't beat a Tsuchikage. Konoha should just commit suicide. Indeed, the ninja war has lost its meaning to us. Orochimaru nodded. I am very interested in Raza. Nara said. Oh? Orochimaru smiled teasingly, not interested in Yitsong? Nara was too lazy to pay attention to Orochimaru. Yitsong scorch style, he can develop it by himself, it's just wind plus fire. But magnet style is a bit mysterious. The 2 finished breakfast. As expected, they were invited to the Hokage's office by an umbu. In the office, the 3rd Hokage was flushed. When he saw Nara and Orochimaru, he couldn't stop the corners of his mouth from rising, and laughed. Good news, Orochimaru, Shintaku. Last night, Konoha's frontline camp killed the attacking force of Sand Shinobi. Kill more than 1,000 people. Capture more than 300. Most importantly, even Luo Sha and Yakura were captured alive and are now imprisoned in Umbu prison. The 3rd Hokage paced back and forth in the office excitedly. This is more than a big victory. It is simply a one-shot kill of the Sand Shinobi. 1.7 ordinary Sand Shinobi can be continuously cultivated, but high-end combat forces like Luo Sha and Yakura took Tsuchikage decades of hard work. Now that they have fallen into Konoha's hands, Tsuchikage can be declared disqualified from war in advance. All this is because of you, Shintaku. The 3rd Hokage excitedly held Nara Shintaku's palm and trembled. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be able to take down Tsuchikage in one battle. Shintaku, you are a hero of the village. A great hero. The blood suit technique and flying sickle kick technique you developed will bring Konoha victory after victory. The 3rd Hokage was so excited that he trembled all over. When he thought of the scene described in the report blood suit technique and the value of the Hikama kick technique in actual combat, he was trembling all over and his heart was burning. It seemed as if he could see the magnificent scene of Konoha sweeping across the 4 hidden villages in this war. $338. Nara Shintaku nodded and responded to the excited old man. After a while, he got away. As for Orochimaru, he stayed in the office and discussed with the third Hokage about the establishment of a technology development department. Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru agreed that there are talents outside the village and there are talents in the village. They can't be wasted. Gather people together and train them in a systematic way. In a dozen years, they will have assistants to use and don't need to do everything themselves. The Nara clan. Nara Shintaku stepped into the clanland. The people of the three families of Ino, Shika, and Cho knew that he was back, so they gathered on the roadside and cheered for him. Mitaku, Seigo. You are the hero behind the scenes. Half of the credit for last night's victory belongs to you. We are proud of you. The shouts continued all the way, even when Nara Mitaku walked into the house, the sound still did not stop. The battlefield is cruel. If you can keep people alive on the battlefield and defeat the enemy, then you will gain the respect of everyone. Episode 62. Sand Shinobi is shocked and studies magnet style and scorch style. Inside the house. Nara Shintaku listened to the shouts outside and smiled. This feeling is not bad. Tsuchikage. In the high-level meeting room. The powerful Sand Shinobi sat in a room. The leader was Chiyo and Ebizo, a pair of siblings. Everyone's face was full of excitement and expectation, waiting for the results of last night's attack. Konoha must have suffered heavy losses. Yes, at least 50% of the ninjas will die. This attack has laid the foundation for Tsuchigage's early advantage. Haha, a big advantage at the beginning. The third Hokage is probably going crazy. The Sand Shinobi high-level people smiled. Seeing this, Chiyo and Ebizo looked at each other and nodded secretly. Luosha's acting Hokage position is secure. Don't relax too much. The battlefield is ever-changing. You can't let your guard down until the confirmed news comes. Chiyo said, but the smile on her lips couldn't be hidden. That's right, everyone should remain solemn. Ebizo also said. Although they said so. But the expressions of the two were very relaxed, without any worries. Haha, two elders, Konoha will definitely lose the battle last night. That's right, the difference is just how much we lose. Luosha inherited the magnet style of the third-generation adults, and his strength is comparable to Konoha's Sannin. Yes, Wei Ding shined last night. Let's wait for his good news. Everyone was scolded, but they didn't get nervous, but laughed. The atmosphere in the conference room was joyful. Chiyo and Ebizo heard this and didn't say anything else. Because they also believed that the plan to sneak attack Konoha's camp last night, Wantani. Bang! At this time, the door of the conference room was pushed open. A messenger ninja ran in anxiously and shouted, "It's not good, Master Chiyo, Master Ebizo. Last night's attack failed. We only returned 83 wounded." The words of the messenger ninja made the atmosphere in the conference room quiet down. Everyone widened their eyes in surprise. The first reaction was disbelief. Failure of the operation? How is it possible? Who are you? How dare you talk nonsense here? You are spreading information randomly, this guy is a spy. Catch him. Everyone was angry and scolded the messenger ninja. Chiyo also frowned at this person, with unfriendly eyes, and said 22, who gave you the wrong information? Being stared at by a group of high-level officials. This Chuanchu ninja broke out in a cold sweat. But the information was like this, he could only bite the bullet and answer, "My lords, go out and take a look and you will know. Our people have escaped back." Bang! Chiyo slammed the table, stood up angrily, and walked out of the meeting room. She wanted to see what Ing said outside. Asshole. A guy who disturbs the morale of the army. How can you spread information without verification? Just wait for me. See how I punish you when I come back. Everyone followed, and when they passed by the ninja who was sending the message, they glared at him angrily. The ninja who was sending the message trembled, dared not speak, and curled up in the corner. Soon, the Sand Shinobi executives in the meeting room came to the outside of the studio. They looked up. The expression froze instantly. Dozens of seriously injured soldiers, either with broken hands or broken feet, were lying on the open ground in pain. Each of the injured was covered with blood and dust. You can tell at a glance that they came back from a long raid. What happened? Shayi, why did you lose your right hand? You, aren't you Yitsong's subordinate? I remember you, you're the newly promoted squadron leader, why are you here? You should be at the front line. The senior executives were shocked, and then they were shocked to see familiar faces among the wounded. Those familiar faces were all ninjas sent out to carry out the attack last night. Normally, These people should be on standby at the front line, not appearing in Sunagakure. Sir, we lost. A wounded man trembled his lips and said with fear in his eyes, the people of Konoha are so strong that they are perverted, they are not human at all. The other wounded heard this and all gave in to panic. All the courage and confidence were beaten away. Are you kidding? Chiyo was furious, staring at the wounded with anger, and questioned, you have 2,000 people, twice the number of Konoha, and there are 2 top strong men, Luosha and Itsung, and it was a sneak attack. How can you lose? Are you all idiots? Faced with Chiyo's questioning, the wounded lowered their heads one by one, looking aggrieved. Answer me! Chiyo shouted. There was silence in the field. After a while, only a sand shinobi gritted his teeth and answered, Elder Chiyo, it's not that we can't do it, it's that Konoha's ninjas are too strong. One person started, and the other wounded also spoke. Yeah, I don't know what happened to them, but they performed the 5 elements escape technique twice as fast as us. And they can step on the air and walk on the air. Lord Yukura was defeated by a Hyuga ninja who could move on the air. And the Uchiha clan, they mastered a strange technique, and a circuit-like blue light appeared on their skin, which could resist Lord Raza's magnet style. Yes, there were 5 Uchiha ninjas who took the sandstorm funeral technique and were fine. They defeated Lord Raza with the golden sand. And the people of Ino Shikacho are also very strange, the secret techniques of the 3 families are many times stronger than before. The wounded talked about it. Chiyo and the senior officials felt cold in their hearts and their hands and feet were cold. One person can lie. But if dozens of people say the same thing, it can't be a lie. In other words, last night's attack really failed. And it was a big failure. Where are Yitsong and Luosha? Chiyo took a deep breath, suppressed the fear in her heart, and asked in a trembling voice. The wounded were silent. Chiyo's heart jumped, her eyes suddenly widened, and she shouted, Answer me. The senior officials around him all had a bad premonition. Lord Yitsong and Lord Luosha were captured. A wounded said with his head down. Boom. This sentence hit Chiyo like a lightning bolt. Chiyo's eyes went dark, and her whole body lost strength. Lord Chiyo. Sister. Brother Ebizo and other senior officials hurriedly supported Chiyo, who was about to fall. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Don't get excited, Daichangbyo. Relax. After a while, Chiyo finally calmed down and said angrily, Investigate. Investigate thoroughly. What's going on? As an elite puppeteer who has been active since the first Kazekage period, Chiyo's status and power are at the top of the Sand Shinobi pyramid. As soon as she said this, all the senior executives obeyed her orders solemnly. Yes, Master Chiyo. That night, a large number of intelligence documents were placed in front of Chiyo, Ebizo, and a group of senior executives. Newly developed technique? Nara Shintaku? Stepping into the air? More than double the strength? Everyone looked at the report and their scalps tingled. They mobilized all their spies and secret agents at all costs to collect complete intelligence. But this complete intelligence shocked them. Nara Shintaku, 7 years old, more than half a year ago, suddenly emerged and developed the blood armor technique and flying sickle kick technique of great value, which greatly enhanced the strength of Konoha shinobi. Chiyo read the summary of the report word by word, her face was so dark that it seemed to drip ink. Blood armor technique, the complete version is S level, which can be divided into 2 A level. Flying sickle kick technique, B level. Any chunin who masters any of the techniques has the strength to threaten jonin. If you are originally a jonin, if you master any of the above techniques, your strength will be greatly increased, and you can crush other ninjas of the same level. There was a dead silence in the conference room. The faces of the senior executives were as gloomy as water, and their expressions were extremely ugly. How to fight this? With the blood armor technique, chunin can have the strength of jonin, and jonin can immediately become a top powerhouse. Last night, Raza was defeated by Uchiha Jonin. Damn it. Chiyo threw the information on the ground angrily, and then said, Is she lucky? How did such a pervert genius appear? What should we do now? Chiyo looked up and glanced at everyone. Everyone avoided her gaze, including her brother Ebizo. After reading the information, they realized that they lost unwillingly last night. At the same time, they also realized another thing. In this war, Konoha is terribly strong. If Sand Shinobi is not careful, it is likely to become history. Master Chiyo, the current situation is not very clear. Why not wait for more information before making a decision? Yes, the wounded also need time to recover. Let's explore the information again. Everyone's eyes flickered. The Sand Shinobi ship seems to be in trouble. Some people have already had other thoughts. Seeing this, Chiyo felt cold in her heart. Iwagakure, Cloud, Shinobi Village, Kirigakure. The 3 hidden villages received the relevant information a step late. Sand Shinobi took the lead and attacked Konoha's camp. How did they lose? What's going on? They can lose this way? The 3 hidden villages were all very confused. They lost in sneak attacks. Are all the ninjas of Sand Shinobi pigs? They asked their ninjas to find more information. Gradually, a name appeared on the table of Raikage, Tsuchikage, and Mizukage. Nara Shintaku? Develop ninjutsu? A blood-wearing technique that can greatly increase the power of ninjas, and a flying sickle kick technique that can move at high speed? It's a bit troublesome, but that's it. War will not change the outcome because of 1 or 2 techniques. The 3 Kage didn't care. After reading it, they just put it aside. Konoha Village. The village was in chaos. The ninjas cooperated with Umbu and the Root to dig out a large number of spies and killed them after trial. As a result, a lot of intelligence was uncovered. However, this had nothing to do with Nara. He had no intention of playing the spy game, but came to a large root base in the village. Orochimaru had already dealt with the 3rd Hokage and Danzo. Danzo was dismissed. The root was reorganized into the Technology Development Department, and the original resources, intelligence, and personnel were all taken over by Orochimaru. Danzo was very angry. Orochimaru and Nara walked side by side in this root base, smiling and saying, "But when I took out the Hokage warrant, removed his position." He immediately lost all his momentum, like a drowned dog. The expression on his face became panic. Orochimaru couldn't help laughing even louder when he thought of that scene. The root ninjas around him didn't look away. Those who had objections had been cleared out long ago. Those who stayed now were not Danzo's diehard fans. In fact, many of them hated Danzo. After all, the root can only enter but not leave. Their lives were ruined the day they joined. So, how do you deal with him? Nara asked casually. For him now. Danzo is just a small field. Not worth noticing. I still cherish the old friendship. Orochimaru chuckled, just keep him under house arrest in the Shimura clan and never let him go out for the rest of his life. Heh, that's more painful than killing him. Nara Shintaku laughed. I just want to make him feel uncomfortable. Orochimaru nodded. The two chatted casually. Until they reached the experimental area. I choose this, Yitsong will be left to you. Orochimaru said first, and walked to the research room on the left. Okay. Nara didn't care and walked to the right. They would exchange research materials anyway. Researching separately is just to save time. But Nara didn't notice that Orochimaru's eyes flashed with a smile of watching a good show. In the laboratory, Yitsong sat in a special cell 570 with a melancholy look. She was injected with a large amount of drugs. Not only her chakra was sealed, but also her physical strength was suppressed. At the same time, someone was monitoring her 24 hours a day. Don't give her a chance to commit suicide. However, Yitsong didn't think of committing suicide. She is not an ordinary ninja. As one of the most outstanding young ninjas of Sand Shinobi, she has a strong scorch style. Konoha will not kill her. Instead, they will use her as a bargaining chip to cut Tsuchigage's flesh. Tsuchikage is also willing to pay a large sum of money to redeem her. Although it is safe, I can't do nothing. Yitsong secretly clenched his fists and thought in his heart, I have to find a way to obtain information. Why have the ninjas of Konoha become so strong? What's the matter with that kind of technique that can step into the air? How is Sand Shinobi now? Has Luosha been captured like me? Yitsong has too many things to figure out. Click. At this time, the door of the laboratory opened. A boy who looked 13 or 14 years old walked in. Nara Shintaku celebrated his birthday in a low-key manner a few days ago, and he turned 18 years old. This boy. Yitsong's eyes fell on Nara Shintaku's face, and she was immediately delighted. Young people are the easiest to deceive. She immediately locked Nara Shintaku as the target of bewitching. Little brother. Yitsong immediately shouted and said to Nara Shintaku, can you tell me how long I slept? Nara Shintaku glanced at her and said nothing. Yitsong did not lose heart and continued to speak, it should not violate the regulations to tell me the current time, right? I can't escape in my current state. So, can you tell your sister a little bit? Yitsong looked at Nara Shintaku with a smile. She didn't notice. The person who was watching her next to her showed a strange expression. First, draw 2 tubes of your blood, and then do a full body scan, including a head scan. Nara Shintaku picked up a plate with a needle for blood drawing and walked in. Yitsung looked at the needle and couldn't help but twitching his eyelids. Are you going to draw her blood for research? Sure enough, Konoha can't resist the mystery of scorch style. Yitsung sneered in his heart. Draw it. She stretched out her smooth arm and gave Nara Shintaku an injection. The slender and fair skin showed clear veins. Nara Shintaku easily pierced and completed the blood drawing. After simply stopping the bleeding, let Yitsung go to the instrument next to him for scanning. No extra words were said. What is this thing for? What will you do with my blood? Have you been doing secret experiments since you were 13? Little brother, you look pretty cool when you don't say anything. Has anyone ever said that? Nara didn't say anything, but Yitsung looked around like a curious baby and asked all kinds of questions. But no matter what she said, Nara ignored her and thought to himself. Using wind plus fire, the fusion method of 2 nature transformations to develop scorch style, the efficiency is too low. Episode 63. Teach you a lesson, Yitsung. Just like blindly using emotions to stimulate the brain and improve pupil power, it is also a crude and primitive method with shockingly low efficiency. In theory, through data collection, a set of efficient methods to deceive chakra can be sorted out. Just like awakening Sharingan. Nara Shintaku ignored Yitsung's chattering, took the blood and scan report, and left. In the laboratory, Yitsung sighed softly, thinking, this little guy is stubborn and difficult to deal with. But she didn't lose heart. If it was easy to succeed, the boy would not allow her to touch him. It doesn't matter, I have a lot of time, Yitsung said to herself in her heart. The next day, Nara Shintaku appeared to do a lumbar puncture for Yitsung. Little brother, when you were in the ninja school, did many girls like you? What's your name? Looking at your hairstyle, you look a bit like someone from the Nara family. Sister, what should I call you? Yitsung frowned because of the pain of the waist puncture, and smiled and talked to Nara Shintaku. She even exposed her round and smooth shoulders intentionally or unintentionally. Seduction? Nara Shintaku raised his eyelids, and his eyes followed her graceful figure curve, lingering slightly at the place where she was protruding in front and behind. Especially the pair of impressive mountains. Although not as good as Tsunade, it is still round and upright. Good figure. Nara Shintaku nodded slightly and gave an evaluation. Then he left with the biological tissue of the waist puncture. Hearing this, a hint of hidden joy flashed in Yitsung's eyes. You are indeed a young man. Can't you hold back? Haha, although it is the first time to seduce someone, with my figure and appearance, it is very successful. Yitsung felt a little proud. Because of her outstanding appearance, she had learned relevant skills. But because it did not fit her personality, she gave up the weapon of beauty. But now, when she uses it, she can still easily deal with a 13 or 14-year-old boy. Outside the laboratory, Nara Shintaku is recording the information of Yitsung's flesh and blood. A management ninja came over hesitantly, with an expression that he wanted to say something but stopped. What's the matter? Nara Shintaku looked straight ahead. No, just. I want to remind you, Shintaku. The man said carefully, although Yitsung is a captive, we don't want to kill her or do anything to her. Sooner or later, she will be sent back to Third Shinobi as a bargaining chip. So, if you want to do something to Yihi, I think it's unnecessary. She is just a captive. There are more people in the village for you to choose from. Hearing this, Nara was helpless. He turned his head and looked at the man, knowing that he was kindly reminding him. He comforted him, don't worry, I'm not someone who makes mistakes. That's good, that's good. The man smiled awkwardly and apologized, sorry, I don't doubt you, but I just remind you as usual according to the rules. Yeah. Nara nodded and didn't take it to heart. However, Yitsung was full of energy and felt that he had caught Nara's tail. Day 3. Day 4. Day 5. Every time Nara took live tissue from Yitsung, he would talk to him. His voice was not only artificial, but his expression was also pitiful. He looked aggrieved and weak. At the same time, he inadvertently raised his head and chest, exposing a certain angle to Nara. Those angles were like absolute domains. You can see, but only a little bit. The most important things can't be seen. This is very uncomfortable. If it was a little Chunan, he would have been provoked to the point of burning passion and lust, and would have done something irreversible. But Nara Shintaku Bafang did not move, and her expression did not change at all. Little brother, sister didn't want to do anything, I just wanted to ask you to help me talk and change a better mat to sleep on. Yitsong looked extremely aggrieved, sobbing, this mat is making my skin hurt. Look, it's all red. Yitsong lifted his sleeves, revealing a slender, snow-white arm. Pointing at the white skin with no red marks at all, he stood in front of Nara Shintaku. Nara Shintaku looked calm and glanced at the special cell behind him. The mat inside was indeed of average quality. But so what? As a captive, do you have the qualifications to be picky? Bear with it for a while, you can move to a new place in a few days. Nara Shintaku said casually and left with his things. In a few days, he will have studied it thoroughly. There is no need to take samples from Yitsong alive, and Yitsong can be transferred to another place to be locked up. In a few days? Yitsong's eyes condensed, and this sentence gave her the wrong signal. She looked at Nara Shintaku's back in surprise, and said to herself, I didn't realize that this boy actually has a certain say? Can I change my place? Yitsong thought of this, and an impulse suddenly surged in his heart. If I can kidnap this boy, maybe I can escape? Yes. Kidnap him. He doesn't show anything on his face, but he's actually moved and seduced by me. Yitsong clenched her fists, and strength seemed to emerge from her weak body. She immediately decided to do it. Anyway, she is valuable, even if the escape fails, she will just be imprisoned again. No need to worry about being killed. And Konoha's reputation is indeed the best in the ninja world. Yitsong sighed, female ninjas, if captured, often end up badly. But in Konoha, I didn't encounter any bad things. Even the people who touched me were female ninjas. Yitsong was worried about this for a long time. So when I met Nara Shintaku for the first time, I even had a nightmare at night, dreaming that this boy who was seduced by her turned into a beast and pressed on her madly. Fortunately, it was just a nightmare. Reality is the opposite of dreams. Tomorrow, we will implement the plan tomorrow. Yitsong narrowed his eyes slightly, adjusted his breathing, and rested to recover more physical energy. In the blink of an eye, tomorrow arrived. Nara Shintaku appeared as usual and took out a needle. But this time, he needed to extract the medulla of Yitsong's spine and lie down. Little pervert, are you doing this on purpose? Yitsong pretended to be embarrassed and turned around and lay on the bed, revealing the exquisite curve of her back in front of Nara Shintaku. In fact, she did feel shy. She even felt that there was a hot gaze wandering back and forth on her body. Although Nara Shintaku didn't even look at her, he lowered his head to assemble the needle. Click. Nara Shintaku lowered his head, as if all his attention was on the needle in his hand. He seemed to be completely relieved about Yitsong. Very good. My disguise these days has deceived him. He thought I would cooperate obediently and would not resist extra. Yitsong lay on the bed, looking at Nara Shintaku, with a cold light flashing in his eyes. Right now. She suddenly turned over, her slender waist twisted like a snake, and her two long legs were raised high, like a pair of scissors, clamping towards Nara Shintaku. These movements had been practiced hundreds of times in Yitsong's mind. I will never fail. Sorry, little brother. A thought flashed through Yitsong's mind, and his expression suddenly changed. What's going on? As soon as she moved, her body suddenly couldn't move. The legs that should have been raised only raised a little at the ankles, and then stopped moving. The body seemed to be petrified. Completely solidified. Puff. With a soft sound, the thin needle pierced into Yitsong's spine, penetrated the spine, and contacted the cerebrospinal fluid inside. Nara Shintaku calmly extracted the cerebrospinal fluid. As if she didn't notice Yitsong's actions at all. Death. Yitsong took a breath of cold air slightly, and then her face changed. She looked at Nara Shintaku in horror, and asked, It's you. Why? Where did I expose myself? Yitsong suddenly realized that it was Nara Shintaku who controlled her. On the ground. A rope-like black shadow stretched out and connected to Yitsong's shadow. This black shadow was like a silk thread controlling a puppet. With a slight pull, Yitsong lost control of his body. And Nara Shintaku continued to do his own movements, unaffected by anything. Ninjutsu Shadow Puppet Technique. This is a new technique developed by Nara Shintaku. You have never succeeded, Miss Yitsong. Nara Shintaku sighed, his tone helpless and speechless. We are all prisoners and still thinking so much. Unlike Luo Sha, he is much more obedient. You should just wait for Sand Shinobi to redeem you. Yitsong's face changed slightly, and he looked at Nara Shintaku in horror. Click. Nara Shintaku steadily drew out the cerebrospinal fluid and took out the needle. He looked down at Yitsong, who was unable to move on the bed, and stretched out a finger. What are you going to do? Yitsong looked terrified. The nightmare of being toyed with the night before came to his mind. No way. This boy won't be beastly? No way. Looking at your expression, you are thinking about something else again. Nara Shintaku sighed, tapped her forehead with his finger, and said, I'll teach you a lesson. I hope you can be more obedient in the days to come. Boom. The moment the finger landed on Yitsong's forehead, a large amount of chakra was refined into Indun properties. Illusion, Dream Demon Technique. Yitsong's eyes were blank for a moment, and he fell sideways on the bed. After waking up, you may vomit and feel sick, and you won't be able to eat. Nara Shintaku retracted his finger and said to the ninja in charge of monitoring, but don't worry, she will recover in half a day. Yes. 2. The two ninjas who were monitoring nodded in response. Nara Shintaku left the laboratory with the cerebrospinal fluid with satisfaction. On the bed, Yitsong's eyes were dull, and his consciousness fell into an illusion, created by illusion. In the illusion, she encountered the most fearful thing in her heart. A young man with a cold smile on his face first stabbed her with a needle and hurt her, then pressed her down and vented his desire wantonly. No matter how she ran away or begged for mercy, it was useless. She would be caught every time. Repeat the scene just now. The miserable state of female ninjas after being captured that she had seen before all became the reality in the illusion, which happened between her and Nara Shintaku. Yitsong suddenly realized in a trance. It's not that she is incompatible with him, but she doesn't like to use the weapon of beauty. M.O. Always in fear. Outside the laboratory, Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru met, and the two exchanged each other's information. Scorching, dry environment. Chakra with wind and fire attributes. Thinking about high temperatures, then basking in high temperatures, stimulating metabolism, adapting to high temperature environments, will deceive chakra and show scorched style. Orochimaru looked at the report and showed an expression that he didn't know what to say. It's too simple. The development process was simpler than he imagined. Chakra's high-end style suddenly fell through. Don't think it's simple, after all, we are just deceiving chakra, not really developing a bloodline limit. If it is really developed from scratch, at least it is as difficult as you developing the curse seal. Think about it yourself, how long will it take? Nara Shintaku said lightly. Orochimaru thought about it and felt that it was true. Scorched style is something that originally existed in chakra. What they called development was just deception. It is not easy to deceive a chakra with simple activity that is not even comparable to a puppy. Magnet style, is there no specific development technique? Nara Shintaku showed a thoughtful expression after reading Orochimaru's report. No. Orochimaru shrugged and said, Rosa is very cooperative. He seems to have noticed the changes in Konoha and understands that Sand Shinobi has no chance of winning. Answer all questions actively. I even know that he was too lazy to wash his underwear when he was a child and put it in neutral, but I still don't know the logic of magnet style's development. Of course, he himself can't explain it. Nara Shintaku nodded without surprise. He already has the answer. Although chakra has 7 properties, in essence, there are only 2 properties. Yin and Yang. It is Yin and Yang that created 5 escape techniques. So much so that ninjas thought chakra had 7 properties. In fact, there are only creation and destruction. Creation and destruction are the universe, which contains all properties. It is not surprising to develop a magnet style from the universe. Nara Shintaku told Orochimaru his idea. I see, this makes sense. Orochimaru suddenly realized. The two of them finished discussing the business. They walked out of the base together. What did Yitsong say? Did he do anything to you? Orochimaru asked curiously. Nara Shintaku made a question mark and immediately cast a sharp look at Orochimaru. You knew she was restless and deliberately threw it to me? No wonder, you rushed to study Luo Sha first at that time. I was wondering, when did you become interested in magnet style? Facing Nara Shintaku's eyes, Orochimaru smiled innocently and spread his hands. Nuo Wang Zhao, it's unfair, I'm just kind-hearted and give you benefits. Benefits are bullshit. Why not benefits? Orochimaru argued, look, Tsunade is an adult lady, Yuhi Kurenai is a little lowly, and your harem is very lacking in women of middle age. Poof. Nara Shintaku almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Along the way, some passing ninjas couldn't help but look at him. If Nara Shintaku is not mistaken, these looks are mixed with worship? Get away from me, Orochimaru. Hey, I thought women were the anchor of your stable mental state. Orochimaru's face was sincere. Nara Shintaku couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. This shit Orochimaru, he is really not dead. He has been secretly testing, trying to find out which figure in the history of the ninja world he is. You got it wrong, Orochimaru. Nara Shintaku sneered and said seriously, I don't like beautiful girls, because of my mental stability. On the contrary, I like beautiful girls, because of my mental stability. Is that so? Orochimaru was slightly startled and showed a thoughtful look. He encountered a similar problem recently. The curse seal technique raised his life level and he had obtained the longevity he desired in the past. But the side effect was that he lost interest in daily affairs. So, he began to observe Nara Shintaku. You are an old monster, but you still maintain such a young mentality. How did you do it, Shintaku? Orochimaru looked at Nara Shintaku in amazement. Nara Shintaku was too lazy to respond, leaving Orochimaru to guess. No one knows. In the laboratory, Yitsong climbed up tremblingly, looking around with fear in her eyes. Her face was both excited and ready, and she was also terrified. It's all illusions. It's okay, it's an illusion. It's not real, she shrank into the corner like a frightened rabbit, and covered herself tightly with a quilt. Such a murmur sounded. Episode 64. Orochimaru, you've made her like this, there's no way I can give her back to Sand Shinobi. The two monitoring ninjas looked at each other in bewilderment. I don't know what technique Nara Shintaku used to make Yitsong so frightened all of a sudden. She's hiding in the quilt, what should we do? One of the monitors asked. The voice was from a young woman. Shintaku said don't worry about her. I'll use the perception ninjutsu. The other monitor pondered for a moment and also spoke in a female voice, as long as her life breath doesn't drop, just ignore it. The two monitors didn't notice. Wrapped in the quilt, shivering Yitsong quietly reached his hand between his legs. Then, Yitsong trembled even more. Outside. The two monitors who didn't know the situation shook their heads. What a terrible technique, it actually scared her so much. After this time, she shouldn't have the heart to do small tricks. A few days later, Nara and Orochimaru finally checked the development of magnet style and scorch style. They walked out of Luo Sha's laboratory and went to Yitsong's laboratory. In the room, Yitsong heard the door open, raised her head, and showed her gray and dull eyes. But the moment she saw Nara, her eyes suddenly lit up. Draw the last tube of blood for backup, and then send Yitsong to the ordinary cell. Nara said, picked up the syringe and walked towards the cell. Orochimaru followed behind and looked up. In the cell, Yitsong was wrapped in a quilt, curled up in a corner, with his hair scattered, looking scared. Orochimaru raised his eyebrows in confusion. The cell fence opened. Nara walked in first, glanced at the frightened Yitsong, and his expression was indifferent. This was the result of the illusion that day. It's normal to be scared. He just assembled the syringe and said calmly, draw blood. Like a cruel evil researcher. Orochimaru was amazed beside him. He was indeed an old monster. When his heart was hard, he was more cruel than anyone else. Yitsong was so scared when he heard Nara's words that he trembled. He quickly lifted the quilt and walked to Nara quickly. It seemed that he dared not disobey any order of Nara. Orochimaru was even more surprised and couldn't help but look at Nara. Didn't you say that you won't make mistakes? Or couldn't help but do it? Don't be like this, sit down. Nara noticed Orochimaru's strange look, and pointed at Yitsong helplessly and shouted. Unexpectedly, this sit down. It seemed to trigger some mechanism. Yes, big. Yitsong's body trembled, and he hurriedly responded. He knelt down in front of Nara with a panic expression, holding Nara's outstretched hand with both hands and placed it on his pretty face. At the same time, he showed a well-behaved, flattering, and fearful expression. 173. It seemed Nara is her master, who has tamed her deeply, and conquered her. Orochimaru's eyelids twitched, and he looked at Nara in disbelief. The two observers also widened their eyes and were stunned. What are you doing? Nara was also dumbfounded, and hurriedly retracted his palm, saying, didn't I tell you not to do these things? But Yitsong turned a deaf ear to him. Or, in her mind, she understood this sentence as something else. I'm sorry, master. Yitsong forgot the necessary etiquette. I'll clean it for you right away. Yitsong stretched out his hands to unbutton Nara's pants, and at the same time opened his mouth slightly, as if ready to swallow something at any time. Stop. Nara was startled and used the shadow secretary to control Yitsong in time. At the same time, he slashed Yitsong out with his hand knife, knocking her unconscious. Nara was relieved and turned to look at Orochimaru, wanting to explain something. But Orochimaru looked thoughtful. You've made her like this, I'm afraid you can't give her back to Sand Shinobi. It's troublesome, Sand Shinobi won't give up a Scorch-style ninja easily. But adding a Scorch-style bloodline to the village is not bad. Using this reason, it's barely justifiable. Nara almost burst out laughing after hearing this. What the hell is this? Why don't you go back? He didn't do anything he shouldn't do to Yitsong. But it's not just Orochimaru. The two female ninjas who were monitoring him also looked at him with strange eyes. No, I really didn't touch her. Nara was helpless and explained, Teacher Orochimaru, do you think I'm such a hungry person? Orochimaru subconsciously wanted to nod. Ah. From Tsunade to Kurina Yuhi. The age gap was so large that Orochimaru was shocked. But on second thought, even if Nara wanted Yitsong, he could do it openly and no one would dare to stop him. And Nara is not a kid. This is a weathered old monster. No. Orochimaru suppressed the urge to nod and shook his head, you are not someone who will make low-level mistakes. Nara Shintaku breathed a sigh of relief. So, what did you do? Orochimaru asked with a raised eyebrow. I used a CCBG illusion on her. Nara Shintaku said helplessly, it's the nightmare technique that you improved from the Naraku technique. That doesn't make sense. This technique will only make people see the scene of fear in their hearts. Orochimaru was stunned. The two monitoring ninjas saw that things didn't seem to be what they thought. Also relaxed their eyes. Use it on me, Mando is the same as what you did to Yihi that day. Orochimaru said. Nara Shintaku raised his hand without hesitation and pointed at Orochimaru. A stream of Indun chakra, transformed into a technique effect, rushed towards Orochimaru. Boom. Orochimaru's body shook, and a trace of confusion flashed in his eyes. The next moment, he regained consciousness, touched his chin and said, it's a very appropriate force, which can push a person to the edge of mental breakdown, but not to collapse. Wait. I think I know what's going on. Orochimaru's eyes suddenly flashed. What's going on? Nara asked. Mitaku, you must not have seen Yitsong's information, this girl looks like an elite jonin, but her character and will are not good. Orochimaru smiled disdainfully. Nara was stunned. Who would read the information? Yitsong was caught, and his blood limit was studied thoroughly by him. Is there any value in reading her information? So, she probably thought of some bad situations as a female ninja, and at the same time, she happened to be drawn blood by you for research, and formed some weird illusions. Orochimaru said after careful consideration. I see. Nara breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, the truth came out. It's not that Nara did something, but Yitsong's will was too weak. She collapsed directly in the illusion. She was tamed by the Nara who she imagined in the illusion. I am convinced too. Nara Shintaku shook his head speechlessly, lowered his head and quickly drew a tube of blood from Yitsong, and walked out of the cell without looking back. Orochimaru followed behind slowly. Don't worry about her, Shintaku. Don't worry about her, just leave her alone, she will recover slowly. Nara Shintaku snorted coldly. That's not necessarily true, she has a mental breakdown, even if she recovers, she may leave a psychological shadow and a deep mark. Orochimaru said slowly. Hehe, what's wrong with staying? Well, it's really okay. That's it? I'm afraid that it will backfire and she won't want to go back to Sunagakure. TSK. Nara smiled contemptuously and didn't take it seriously. Seeing this, Orochimaru said nothing more. The two walked away, leaving the base of the technical department. Nara and Orochimaru walked in the forest and discussed the candidate for the general manager of the technical department. They needed someone who understood research and could manage all the trivial matters. I can't think of a candidate for the time being, so I can only slowly train one from the young children. Orochimaru said with a troubled look. Candidate? Nara looked thoughtful. Oh? Orochimaru was surprised, do you have someone who meets the requirements? Indeed there is one. Nara nodded. Hiru. A ninja of the same period as Orochimaru, although he was a jonin, he was mediocre among the jonin, so he successfully mastered the power of 4 bloodline limits by studying taboo experiments. Although in Nara's opinion, 4 bloodline limits are nothing. But for an ordinary jonin, he switched to scientific research and developed the forbidden technique that combined 4 blood limits. His research talent is outstanding. During this period, he should not have defected yet. It was just right to recruit him to be the head of the technical department. Then leave it to you? Orochimaru asked. Just give it to me. Nara nodded. Orochimaru looked at Nara with some worry. He thought that he knew so much about the ninjas in the village, but he didn't find a qualified person. Where can you find someone? However, Orochimaru didn't say anything extra. The two returned to the village and parted ways. Orochimaru had to do other things. On the street, Nara expanded his perception. The entire Konoha village was reflected in his heart lake, clearly visible. Even the barrier technique could not isolate Nara's perception, and the situation inside the barrier was also reflected. Found it. After searching for a while, Nara Shintaku found a man with pale hair and a handsome face. His figure flashed. Time and space were distorted, and two extremely far places were glued together in an instant. Nara Shintaku took a step forward. Suddenly the sky and the world changed. He disappeared from Konoha village, crossed thousands of meters, and appeared in a public training ground outside the village. In the field. Bang 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 bang. The air exploded. A figure walked in the air, stepping on natural energy, moving at high speed in the air. However, the speed of movement was slightly slower. If the speed of other Jonin is 1, then this figure is probably only 0.8. Huh. After a moment, this figure returned to the ground, gasping for breath. Still not working. His expression flashed with sadness, and he said dejectedly, "It's the same flying sickle kick technique, but it can't exert its full power in my hands. My body can't bear the load of high-speed movement. My reaction and dynamic vision can't keep up with the high speed." Baliohu felt deeply frustrated. His talent was exhausted after becoming a Jonin. It seems that this is the only way to go in this life. Maybe your talent is not in fighting, Baliohu Jonin. Suddenly a voice came. Who? Baliohu's face was stern, and he looked in the direction of the voice vigilantly. Before he started practicing, he clearly confirmed that there was no one around. When did the other party come? Nara Shin. June? But after seeing the owner of the voice, Baliohu was stunned and said in surprise, "Are you that Shintaku-kun?" He looked at a boy on the sidelines in disbelief. He looked 13 years old. His hair was the signature pineapple hair of the Nara clan. He had the honor of seeing that face from afar once. It was the famous Narataku from the upper class of the village. The blood armor technique and the flying sickle kick technique he developed have benefited countless ninjas. It is said that Konoha and Sand Shinobi had their first battle a few days ago. It was the two techniques developed by Nara Shintaku that helped the Konoha Shinobi win with decisive power. It's me. Nara Shintaku walked into the training ground with a smile, and the shadow under his feet swayed, flaunted, and materialized. This was to use the shadow secret technique to prove his identity. As expected. Seeing the shadow secret technique, Okunabu breathed a sigh of relief, and the vigilance on his face disappeared. Nice to meet you, Shintaku-kun, do you have something to ask me? Okunabu asked sincerely. He was full of respect for this young boy. Because he also applied for the flying sickle kick technique. This technique greatly increased his chances of survival, giving him a better chance of survival in the next war. For this reason alone, Haruhi respected Nara Shintaku immensely. Moreover, Haruhi was deeply shocked by the ingenious conception of the Hikama kick technique and the selflessness of its public teaching. He had long regarded Nara Shintaku as his idol. I have something to ask you, Haruhi Jonin. Nara Shintaku smiled slightly. Haruhi's face became solemn. Please go ahead. Don't be so serious, it's just a small matter. Nara Shintaku paused and smiled. You should know that the route has been reorganized into the Technology Development Department, right? I would like to invite you to be the director of the Technology Development Department, and your authority is only below that of me and teacher Orochimaru. I don't know, are you interested? Haruhi was stunned. He looked at Nara Shintaku blankly, as if to say. Me? I'll be the director? Yes, it's you. Nara Shintaku confirmed his guess. But I don't have any scientific research experience, can I still be a supervisor? Toru smiled bitterly. Nara Shintaku didn't care and said, experience can be accumulated, but talent can only be left to fate. Talent? Haruhi looked puzzled. Yes, you are a talented person. Nara Shintaku pointed at him with a smile. Haruhi was stunned and asked in surprise, talent? I have a talent for research? Shintaku-kun, it's not that I don't have confidence. But I have never shown any talent in this area since I was a child. Hirohu had a bitter expression. If he had a talent for research, he would have applied to join the technical development department long ago. Why bother to practice ninjutsu so hard? Hirohu Jonin, I think you have it, said Kong Kongtua seriously. Ah? Hirohu was even more surprised, and he looked at Nara Shintaku in disbelief. I couldn't figure out where this Shintaku-kun got the confidence to think he had a talent for research. This was of course the original plot, which gave Nara Shintaku confidence. In a certain theater version, Hirohu is the big boss, relying on 4 blood limits to suppress the protagonist group. If it weren't for the plot, which prevented him from absorbing the 5th blood limit and achieving immortality, maybe the ninja world would have another top powerhouse. Anyway, your talent in combat should have come to an end, why don't you try a new direction? Nara Shintaku stretched out a hand to him and said with a smile, maybe there will be new gains? Gudong. Hirohu looked at Nara Shintaku's outstretched hand, seemed to feel a strong temptation. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Almost without hesitation, Hirohu stretched out his hand and grasped Nara Shintaku's hand, as if grasping tomorrow and the future. Please, Shintaku-kun,